deny my request to move from hourly to salary, then dump all this extra work on me? Cool, thanks for the extra paycheck. TLDR is basically the title. Years ago I worked as the sole hourly employee on a team with salaried workers. This designation had been a mistake on my initial contract, and my cool boss said she would switch me to salary just as soon as my first year contract was up. Unfortunately for me, just before my anniversary my cool boss left and a bitchy co-worker got promoted. Request denied. No reason given other than I don't think it's necessary. A few weeks later we had this event that had been planned by cool boss, but since she left the company it fell to new bitchy boss and the rest of us workers to staff it. The location for this event was nearly an hour away from the office. Everyone else could just show up to the location, but being hourly I had to first go to the office, clock in, then drive an hour. Oh well, guess I get paid for travel time. The night before the event we had hired a set building team to put everything together, but someone from our company had to stay until they were finished, per contract with the location. Bitchy boss decided to make me stay as I was her least favorite, so the rest of the team left and went home. Well, there were major issues with the set, and by 10 PM it was just me and the one set builder left in the place as he was trying to make this thing work. Set builder didn't care as he was making a ton of overtime, and besides this particular configuration had been 100% his idea, so he was determined to solve it. I decided I didn't care because I had found some cushions to sleep on. I ended up dozing from about 11 PM to 5 AM when he finally finished and we could leave. I then drove an hour to the office, clocked out and went home, which was thankfully a short drive. I had an hour to shower, change and go back to the office to clock in, then drive an hour to meet everyone back at the location at 8 AM. Then worked the event with bitchy boss again, assigning me to stay later than her to supervise breakdown. So, in a 36-hour window, I ended up being on the clock for 33 of those hours. Monday morning bitchy boss has to approve and submit payroll, and only then does she realize that she has to pay me time and a half for those 33 hours. She actually had the gall to be mad at me for not warning her about all the overtime, which made me laugh as I explained I didn't think that was necessary since it was your idea to keep me hourly, boss. Updates and answers to FAQs. For those asking, here is the explanation of why I wanted to be salaried instead of hourly. At this job, salaried workers had a lot more freedom than hourly employees. For example, salaried didn't have to clock in or out, so if traffic was bad coming back from lunch or if they had to leave a little early for a dentist appointment, it was no problem. As an hourly employee, if I was even 1 minute off from my designated hours of 8 AM to 5 PM with a 60-minute break, I was in trouble. Have to leave early for a dentist appointment? I would have to put in a time off request and wait for it to be approved before I could take the appointment, and my hours and pay would be docked that week, unless I used vacation time, for the time I was gone. It was just very annoying to be the only person in my department who had to jump through so many hoops every day. The aftermath, for those asking, nothing major changed for me immediately after that, and I didn't get fired. That many hot hours did raise several red flags from her boss and the accounting department. She got majorly scolded but essentially forgiven as she was a brand new boss. I had already been looking for other jobs, so by the time my contract was ending I was able to walk out. For those interested, the story on how I left is, less than 6 months later I was sitting in a contract renewal meeting with bitchy boss and her boss. As yet another power move, I had been trying to schedule this meeting for weeks, but bitchy boss decided she was just too busy and I had to wait until the very last day of my contract. I had been keeping my department afloat, plus assisting with 2 other departments who had people out on various medical leaves, meeting all deadlines while maintaining 0 minutes of OT and 40 hours a week, which impressed the hell out of everyone but bitchy boss. I asked for a small raise and to be made salary with my new contract. She boss doesn't even blink, immediately denies my raise and my request to switch to salary. So I smile and whip out my letter of resignation stating that I would be leaving at the end of my contract, which was ending that day at 5 PM, on the dot, and I whipped out an offer letter from my new job with starting salary $12,000 more. She looked shocked, her boss looked a little pale, and I stood up, shook their hands, thanked them profusely for their time and walked out the door to start packing up my stuff. In the end, I left on excellent terms with every but her. Those other departments I was helping? I helped them remotely for a hefty consulting fee until they were restaffed even after starting my new job. I offered to do the same for my department, but bitchy boss assured her boss that she could get someone in there quickly to fill my shoes. Took 3 months to find someone qualified. They left after 4 months of working under bitchy boss, and then the company closed that position entirely and bitchy boss had to beg other departments for assistance on a project-by-project basis. Less than 2 years after I left, the revolving door of people due to bitchy boss's mismanagement caused the entire department to shut down. Everyone there at the time was laid off. Sorry for making this post so much longer, thanks for reading, smile. Revenge is super sweet when you can quote their own words back at them, lol. Nice. Bet her boss wasn't too happy about it, either.
Deleted.
Had a similar thing happen years ago when I worked for a trucking company. All the dock workers were hourly, and all the office staff were flat salary. Transferred from being a dock worker to a dispatcher on a trial basis, to see if I could handle it. Remained hourly, and after the 90-day trial period, they made my transition permanent. But never flipped me to salary. Being low man on the totem pole, I batted cleanup and worked graveyards. Busy nights I'd work 14-hour shifts. Most days were 9 at least. One day I overheard my dispatch manager on the phone with his wife excitedly telling her that he'd been bumped from $48,000 to $52,000. I just kept my head down and smiled. Earlier that week we'd been given our tax summary for the previous year, and I had made just over $63,000. I managed 23 hourly employees and 5 salary. If she didn't see this coming in its entirety, she's zucchini at her job. You also don't provoke a situation. You also don't provide free reign hours to your least favorite employee. JFC, this girl missed on every single level of every single management metric, as she was literally asking for MC. This is the epitome of pissing into the wind. This boss lady deserves everything coming to her.
Deleted.
There are many companies that haven't figured out how to manage people in an economy with low unemployment. So many places treat good people like they are expendable.
This isn't how you treat people in any economy. Even if he was salaried, putting someone in this situation where they have to be at work, at night, with nothing to do is stupid. Getting something as big as hourly/salary wrong is terrible. This is just a poorly run company.
Send the police. There is a black man walking down the street. You want the police just because a black man is walking down the street? You got it. I originally posted this as a comment on another thread, but it brought up so interesting discussion, so I figured I'd post its own topic. I used to work as a 911 dispatcher, and I once took a call from a lady who was complaining about a black man walking down the street. He was doing nothing wrong, except, as she put it, he's black and walking down the street. She insisted an officer be dispatched to speak with her, and we had a policy that we had to dispatch. So I sent the only black officer on duty. It was out of his area, but a computer message to him and the supervisor made it obvious why he was going. When he arrived, she went nuts and called again, screaming that there was now a black man knocking on her door. I said, yes, this is the police officer you requested. Ultimately I had to send the supervisor out because she refused to open the door and was throwing a huge fit on the phone. Edit, thanks for the gold. I never expected this to blow up like it has. As for the few people who have felt the need to say this is fake, it's not. This is the world we live in, and it happened. It happens every day. Locked. Way too many rule breakers in here. Probably because it's on r/all and r/popular. The perfect ending would have been if the supervisor was also black.
Plot twist, the lady was black all along.
I was a 911 operator for a little over 5 years. There was an elderly lady that would call all the time, and the call would go a little something like this: me, after name, address, etc. Lady, there's a gang on the corner. Send someone please. Me, okay, can you describe the gang and what they're doing? Lady, they're black. Me, okay. Lady, they're loud. Me, okay. Lady, they have book bags. Me, wait, what? Are they at a bus stop? Lady, yeah. How do you know? Me, Are there kids waiting for a bus? Mom, lady, dead serious? Well, I don't know what they're doing, but they're out there every morning and you need to send someone out here and tell them to leave. And as per our regulations, we had to send an officer.
Just so it's said, obviously you already know this, there is a reason for that mandatory dispatch policy. Well, several, but in this case it's a good opportunity for a wellness check, to make sure that the racist old biddy isn't a racist old biddy with dementia sharing her house with a family of raccoons that she calls by her children's names.
Barely related, but I used to work retail selling computers, and customers would frequently refuse to talk to me because I'm female. They would straight up tell me I'll wait for the computer guy. So I would go do something else until the male employee the customers inevitably found came to ask me for help. Since I knew more about computers than anyone else in the store. Fun fact, the most sexist people were women. Company says I tip too high when I travel. Now I intentionally order more expensive food so I can tip what I think is an appropriate amount. When going over my expense report, my company saw I tipped 20% for lunch one afternoon. Lunch was $15, the tip was $3. It told me that is too much because I wouldn't do that with my money. Heck yeah I do. I just took the better part of an hour of my service time. The least I could do is leave $3. It's $3 for crying out loud. But rules are rules. However, my company is fairly generous, allowing me $75 a day to spend on food, which I never do, and that's about to change. For lunch today, instead of my usual salad or sandwich, I went for the lobster grilled cheese. And of course upgrades my regular fries to the duck fat fries. Enjoy saving that 5% for the rest of my travel meal expenses. Edit, for those saying tip out of my pocket. I was explicitly told to tip using the company's money and just count it towards my daily amount. Edit 2, good grief people, this is not stealing or destroying the company. This money is already budgeted for when I travel, and this company isn't going under because Vielden decides to spend $10 more on food to leave a tip. The company is just fine. This won't be a blip on their radar. Colleague of mine's wife has a similar story. We all worked for the same multinational. She was working on a project that required a 400-ish mile commute about once a week. She'd get a 6 a.m. flight from a large airport, grab breakfast before she boarded, and be at work for 9 a.m. Her boss refused to approve her expenses because the breakfast went over the £5 limit. Years ago this limit was fine, but they haven't kept pace with inflation, and whilst it works in our main location, it doesn't cover breakfast in the expensive airport. So my boss's wife said fine, and then exercised her right to travel up the night before. That's a slightly cheaper flight, but also throws in a dinner allowance, an overnight allowance she makes sure to use, and a larger breakfast allowance. After a couple weeks of this, her boss realized she was hammering his project budget and asked her to go back to coming up in the morning. She refused and cited how it's more convenient for her and her family. He put 2 plus 2 together and agreed to approve her breakfast expenses again within reason. This is so weird. The company I work for has us tip fairly because our company name is right there on the card. We have a reasonable amount, quoted from the travel guidelines, toward food and drink. It flagged me for spending £5 on lunch.
Coconut hell, that's like a chocolate bar and a bag of crisps at a services.
After years of travel, I got that one also. Company policy is 15%, you tipped 20%. However, on the same trip, I heard alcohol was too large a percentage of your last dinner. Well, that's because I was at the airport, and I had a $10 appetizer and an $8 beer as dinner. Next trip, I made sure to order the $10 appetizer and a $15 burger, so my $8 beer wasn't too large a percentage. Both bites of the burger were delicious, though.
Place I used to work had a policy that was you couldn't exceed $50 for meals each day. Coworker there would go to a bar, order a burger or something, and basically tell the bartender that whatever was left over was their tip. He got a lot of free drinks.
I had a trip to Europe once. Was booking well in advance. Ticket on Friday departure was $450 and Saturday was $2,800. They made me book Saturday because we are not supposed to waste company money for extra days in the hotel. Hotel and meals would be $150 max for the extra day. SMH management.
I had one trip where they wanted me to fly halfway across Europe, stay for a week, fly back home on the Saturday, then fly out on the Sunday to the next destination as the flights were cheaper than a direct between the two. I explained that the £50 difference didn't include my mileage traveling to / from the airport, which was £100 each way. They finally noticed it was worth the extra.